as you all know, because I sent you all of you an email to explain, I misinterpreted what Jackson had said, and what I would like to do at the beginning is to ask Jackson if he's got anything else to say it now.
Nothing else to say, Derek.
Right, that's fine. So we'll move on to the agenda, which you've all had, and the only person who's not got it in front of them now is me, which is a bit silly. Should have opened it, but just bear with me. Here we go. At least, here we go, if it's in. Right, I thought I would start by, as several of you have sent back your the revised copy of the agreement. I didn't want that. I just wanted you to look at it and see if it made sense. Because since that happened, there's been quite a lot of alteration to it anyway. So I did ask if you had wanted a little, what's it called, game to try and spot the errors. And let me tell you, first of all, what they were. At the very top of the agreement, it said derinitions. And everybody who has signed an agreement up to now has signed that agreement saying that with the derinitions in it. So I've altered that to what it should say.
I corrected mine before sending it back to you, Derek.
Excellent. Now, number 2, and several of you spotted this, the word, it said, I agree, not share. And of course, it should say not to share. And then a very eagle-eyed person in the list at the bottom where you sign noticed that there was a colon missing. And then I think one person spotted that in the agreement, which nobody reads, but it's at the front of every video, it said family historian Zoom group. And then the second time it said the old name, family historian Zoom user. No, wait a minute, family historian user Zoom group. So that's now been removed. Okay. The first thing that we really need to discuss is the model of running the group. Are you happy with the way it's been running, which is my way? I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. Or do you feel that the time has now come that we should have a constitution? Now I'm doing that the wrong way around, I'm sorry. The constitution, the draft one, was sent to everybody. And that's had a lot of work over the time since we started the group. First of all, Trevor and I drew it up, and it's been altered by various people to make it better since. Everyone who replied to me, because they wouldn't be here, said that they were happy with it. I better come back to Zoom now. You didn't know I'd gone, really. But if anyone's not happy with the wording of the Constitution, can you indicate somehow, or speak even?
What might be worth doing is saying that we haven't had a constitution since we set up. We talked about having one early on, and you discussed with one or two people whether we should implement a constitution, and the feeling was not at that time.
No, we would need one. At least that's what I thought, if we opened a bank account. But the bank account that we're in the process of opening is it's a little bit different. It's one called a treasurer's account, and it's the one I went for was Bank of Scotland, although I discovered afterwards that they're part of Lloyd's group. So we could have gone to Lloyd's and we would have had exactly the same. And that does not require that we have a constitution. Every other one I looked at did, and in fact most of them now will only let you have a bank account for a group if you already have a personal account with them. But John's had his hand up for some time, so I'll let him go.
Yeah, my understanding, there's one thing that's missing from the Constitution in terms of finance, and that's what happens if the group folds and there is still money in the account. There's nothing in the Constitution that says what happens to any remaining funds. My other understanding was that if you are making it a subscription rather than a donation, then you have to have a constitution.
Not so. I've done some investigating of that one, and it doesn't appear that you do it. The whole thing seems to revolve whether you have a bank account that requires one, or if you want to register yourself as a charity. But I agree, we should include something about that. I'll do a bit of investigation, and then at the AGM, where we can formally adopt the Constitution, I'll present the revised one. But two people now want to say something. First of all, David.
What problem are we trying to solve? We're going to a lot of effort to make a change for some reason, and I don't know what that reason is. I mean, I'm quite happy with your semi-autocratic style of management. You and I have had a couple run-ins and we've gotten through them without an issue. I don't know why we need to make much change. I mean, at some point, we need a succession plan for Derek. But other than that, I don't know what the problem is we're trying to solve. We're going to a lot of effort to solve a non-problem. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes, you've hit on one thing that I for a long time I've had a person who would organise things when I'd gone, and that person has now said that they would rather not do it anymore. So I'm in the process of finding someone else. It obviously needs to be younger than me. Hopefully I shall get it sorted before I've gone. But I agree, the only point of agreeing for this constitution is so that we've got one there, sitting there in case it's ever needed. Sorry, Diane's got a hand up.
You're muted, Diane.
It leads just from what I think David was saying is it's very hard to be sure a constitution is going to meet your needs if you're not absolutely clear what the objectives are. And I think that's what, I know I'm not as closely involved as some people are really heavily involved in this. But that was my query as well, is what is it that we're trying to achieve with the Constitution? And therefore, is that fit for purpose? I'm also unclear about that.
Certainly one thing needs to be agreed, and that's the point that John has made. For instance, we're coming near to the point where a lot of what we pay for needs to be renewed. And that comes before we will be asking for the next lot of money. So we've got rather a large balance at the moment. And if the group folded now, we would need to know what to do with it. I think my suggestion would quite simply be that, well, either we divide what's left between everyone who's a member, or we donate it to charities. But can we hold that over now until the annual meeting in October?
Yeah.
What's Bob?
That might be a good idea, Derek. If
Can we just take
people
Bob's point? He's got his hand up.
Yeah, Bob.
I wanted to agree with everybody else that's spoken. I don't understand what this constitution is doing. What is going to be the effect of this constitution? What's it trying to?
Let me explain. If we have a constitution, I stop running things in the way that I have done, which is that when a decision needs to be made, I select a group of people who I hope are representative, seek their views, and then we go ahead. It comes up later in the agenda, but one of the things that I did get opinions on was subscription or donation. So that's, and for that I contacted 30 people. Now you might feel that's not enough, but that's the way we've been doing things. If, on the other hand, you want to move to a regulated system, we need to agree the Constitution, and then we would have an elected committee. So, from the replies I've received from people who can't be here, I've had one person who favours a constitution model and 11 people who are happy with the way things are. I think, I don't really know how to do this. If you could put in the chat box, now what could we use?
So one of the things that I believe that a constitution is required is if we move from a donation to a subscription model.
Yes,
Yeah, that's my understanding.
So as you've got that next on the agenda, could we possibly discuss the subscription, the intention to move to a subscription model, and therefore that will impact whether or not I believe we need a constitution?
Well, unless you've done some research and come up with different answers than I did, then yes, we would need the Constitution if you're right, but
No, what I was asking is, your second point on the agenda is subscription or donation, and I was asking if we could discuss that before completing our discussion of the need for a constitution.
I agree.
Right, well, we can. Wait a minute, if somebody else wants to be let in. The reason I had the discussion with people over the subscription model is that in the correspondence I have, a lot of people, even though we've had a donation, refer to it as the annual subs. And to me, it made sense, therefore, to ask people to, should we move to a subscription rather than donation? And from the people I consulted, it was overwhelming that most people said, let's move to a subscription. But what do people feel? David's got his hand up, so I'll ask him first.
Why does the concept of subscription force a constitution versus donation?
I don't think it does, but two people
yeah,
do.
Two people keep saying that, and I mean, I don't know a lot about organizational law in Great Britain, but I can tell you in Canada, it wouldn't matter a hoot what you were doing. It only matters if you're interacting with the income tax department in some way. Which I don't think our intent is.
It only seems to matter over here, as from my research, if you have a bank account because they require it, or if you want to register yourself as a charity.
We're not going to register as a charity.
We
and you
do
found a bank account way to get around that other concern. So neither of these things are driving us to get a constitution.
No.
So I don't think we need to keep saying that.
Right, Yasmin? You're muted.
I was trying to find the unmute button and I've just found it. Thank you very much. I don't really understand the road we're going down, and maybe I'm just being a little bit thick, but I'm a member of a lot of organisations where I pay a subscription and they have to have a committee. That's my understanding. But I don't see why we can't just continue to pay the donation, why we have to change it, or am I just being a bit naive?
No, we can still stay on the donation if people wish. Let's make this simple. In the chat box, if you favour the subscription model, can you just put an S?
Could we just hear what Bob wants, please? Because he's got his hand up.
What's the difference between a subscription and a donation?
And Liz has got her hand up as well.
A subscription is a fixed amount. A donation is a suggested amount.
What is the difference in
Are they
terms?
both voluntary? Or are they both compulsory?
Difficult to answer that one, and it looks like you might have been primed to ask it.
No, I haven't. Emphasise that I have not been primed.
Okay,
I object to that.
Apologies. I'm not going to name anyone, but when it was a donation, or as it is now, in the email, and you should have had it, well, yeah, I doubt whether you will have it handy, but the one that you had last year always includes a bit that if you cannot afford to make the donation, which was suggested at £5, just let me know. And we've had a member, obviously I'm not going to name anyone, who was in that situation. But I would do exactly the same thing if it was a subscription, though.
But really, the name is irrelevant.
Yeah.
To me.
Okay, there's some points
Liz,
raised.
sorry, Derek, Liz has had her hand up for quite a while.
Yeah, I've just said Liz.
Oh, right. I didn't hear that. Thank you. I have a question about taxation. A subscription sounds like a commercial transaction. Would that trigger having to pay tax on it in your country? It would here.
No, no, it doesn't.
Okay, because then we're into a whole other issue. Subscription, it just doesn't sit right with me. I'm a donation kind of person.
Right. Steve?
Yeah, I've always liked the fact that it's been quite informal. I'm a member of a few societies and they get bogged down with stuff and then they lose track of why we're here in the first place. And I've always preferred that it was an exchange of information and that we're given a donation towards that to pay for the website and for the Zoom itself, which can be quite expensive. So from my point of view, that's why I like the group the way it was.
Right. Well, in that case, can we now move on to putting in the chat whether with either an S or a D?
But just like to point out, there are some questions in the chat. I don't know if you've noticed them, Derek.
I thought people would just ask them tonight, but anyway.
Nope, there are questions in the chat.
I don't have a co-host, but even Ian, would you take over with the questions?
Yep. So going from the top, and apologies if I miss any. Somebody's asked if there is any way to turn on captions so that if you have difficulty hearing what's being said, you can read them. And I've had a look, and I can't see that that feature is available to us for this meeting.
I've never come across it.
So CC is the usual thing, but I can't see that it's available to us. So apologies for that. Somebody's asked if it would be easier to decide donation versus subscription if we could have details of the financial statements. I mean, how much money is involved at the moment in the group?
Currently, we have just over £700. But having said that, like I said earlier, the Zoom license comes up before we ask for the next lot of donations or subs. So most of that will go on that. I should explain that we don't just have one Zoom license. We currently have 4.
Thank you.
Can I ask, I'm sorry I was a little bit late in joining, but is there an implication following from what we might decide here as to how we find ourselves having to manage our affairs going into the future, i.e. do we wind up becoming a charity and have to follow the legal rules and regulations of a charity and apply for a charitable status, or are we what is going to change if we go for a donation as opposed to a subscription, which to me seems like much the same thing really. You just suggest a figure and that's what people pay, or you can.
We don't have to register as a charity, which is would be the case, I guess, if no, I don't know. You really only need to register as a charity, I suppose, if you're seeking to get funds from different places. We're doing our own funds in this way.
Okay, so a couple of people have got their hands up, but just to clarify a couple of points that are in the chat that may help what we've just been saying. One person has written a donation is an informal or voluntary, and a subscription is a formal thing and is required. Someone else is saying, okay, I understand that. I want to understand, I would like to hear some arguments for or against. Several people have then replied to your question, asking people to put something in the chat about whether it should be a donation or a subscription, but most of which are donations, but we haven't really sorted out the real difference between them. And as one person has pointed out, it doesn't really matter if both are being capable of being waived in case of need. And someone else has asked, why do we have 4 Zoom licenses, and what is the annual cost of Zoom licenses for up to 100 people, please? So we've got 2 people with hands up, but I was just wondering, Derek, if you could deal with why do we have 4 Zoom licenses and what is the annual cost of the Zoom licenses?
Right. It's the cost. I would have to look that up, but it's no, I'm not going to guess. I will look it up. The reason we have 4 is because obviously when I set this group up, there was 1 license, that was mine. Taking into account my age, and as we've talked about it before, making provision for when I'm not here, there was a 2nd license for that person. Then it seemed to me that it would be quite good if we'd already got the funds, that if someone else had a license who was at nearly every meeting and and if I didn't turn up for whatever reason, would be able to take over. And that person is Paul. It also seemed useful that Alan had a license because he has lots of one-to-one sessions. And maybe there's people here tonight who've benefited from Alan having a license. So those are the 4.
Thank you very much. So that's, I think, answered the questions apart from the cost. Were you able to find the cost? I think you were looking that up.
Yes, I'll have to look at them. If you go on to another...
Sorry, Ian, I've just Googled it.
Thank you.
I've Googled the cost of Zoom licenses. So a Zoom license for an unlimited number of group meetings for up to 100 participants is £119.90, well, £120 a year, all but 10p. And then for larger events, it's £160, all but 10p. So that's the cost of each license. Because my question was, how much does it cost to run the group?
I'm going to interrupt there because that's what I thought at the beginning. And then when I got the bill, 20% VAT was added.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay, so we got a couple of hands up, and I think it would be nice if we took those. Yasmin, you got your hand up. Was there anything else?
No, mine was just how much was it, and I've Googled it. So that was all my question was.
And Paul Featherstone?
Yeah, if you go down the subscription route, you've then got to look for volunteers every year, hold elections. I don't think we need it. It's just a group that's out there themselves. That's what I think. So I wouldn't be in favour of subscriptions. Maybe we're lucky that Derek's carrying the load. But if you've got to find somebody when Derek goes to replace him.
I think it's what's keeping me alive.
And I'm very much in favor of continuing with this group exactly as it is, if that's the result.
Yeah. Well, I'll agree with that. We do have to take into account that Derek has, since he set up the group, been conscious of his age and would like to make sure that the group will run if he is incapacitated. And at the moment, I am the person that has agreed to continue to run it. but I'm withdrawing from that situation because I've been doing it for nearly 2 years and I'm not spending the time with this group. And therefore, either we should have one other person that's willing to run the group, or we have a formal mechanism whereby we have a group of people who will together run the group and have agreed beforehand that they will run the group. That's where a constitution can help.
Yes,
We can still leave it voluntary if we
you're
want to, but a constitution can help.
Yeah, but you still need volunteers,
who would
no matter
take
what you do.
run the group in. My understanding was that you would organise things. In other words, you would have well, all the contact details for the future speakers and so on. And then you would organise things in such a way that you found a new leader and so on. But as I say, I have someone in mind, and unless you don't want to leave that to me, I suggest that you do. I'm a little bit anxious because the main point of this session, this meeting, was to talk about privacy, and it looks like we might not even get there. Oh, on the other hand, it's only 8 o'clock.
All right. My suggestion at the moment is that we actually move forward through the other points in the agenda, and then we can come back to some of them if we want to be, just in case any of the further points on the agenda are related to what we've just been talking about.
I think we could probably quickly do that because lots of people have already voted one way or the other by the look of it. And I get the impression that the feeling is stick with donations. Could somebody do a quick calculation of the votes?
Can I ask how many members we have?
Round about 160 throughout.
No one has voted for subscription. All the votes are for donations.
That's fine. In that case, that's what we will continue with. The other point was over the someone queried that why the email address had changed. Basically, when the group started, that was the one that I set up, and the wording of it reflected the name of the group at that point. And it did occur to me that now we have a web host that includes email addresses. It made more sense to have an email address which belonged to the group. And this, in fact, does go over into the privacy issues, because you may or may not know that everything that goes through Google, they claim possession of it. So everyone who uses a Gmail email address, which we've done for nearly 2 years, if I put an attachment, say, to an email, Google have a look at it. Now, I don't think in reality our attachments would be of much interest to Google, but they that's what they do. And you know that works because I think in one of his emails, someone mentioned that they were having a conversation about something. Oh no, that wasn't a Google one. It was, I had that experience when I recently bought a new PC. That I was doing a search to find what I should purchase. And suddenly Facebook was flooded with adverts for various PCs.
That's common.
So you know that's happening. So that's why I changed the email address. We've had some trouble, especially with English people who have a BT internet email, what's the word, host. But accidentally I've discovered a way, and that's now sorted out. The accident was that I sent that those people with that address an email, and I omitted accidentally the initials DRH, and every one of those emails got through. So hopefully there's no more problems. But I do know that some people in the States are having problems, and unfortunately I can't sort that out because their emails don't bounce. Are you all happy with the change of email address?
Don't understand the reasons, because I'm not aware Gmail have a privacy issue, because so many of us have Gmail accounts.
Well, if you look at the anything you use for Google, if you look at the terms and conditions, you'll find it there. And that's
Google themselves say they don't read your emails, but they will track what you do online when you are signed into your Google account, which means you're signed into Chrome or signed into YouTube or signed into Gmail. At that point, your internet activity is tracked, but they're not reading your actual messages. They still know what you're doing, but they're not reading your communications.
Yeah, they will stop you sending certain attachments. You can't send a .txt, but you can send a zip file. And quite a lot of the email companies won't allow open messages to go through. I know when I was working 10, 12 years ago, our company changed their internal email system to a Gmail system, and they paid a big amount of money for the Gmail from Google and changed it to specsavers.com. And there's quite a lot of legal implications that went in on that. And I understand that our IT gurus could actually see some of the messaging going through, but there is normally so much, they just never have the time to actually look at it. We were warned, don't abuse it, because you could be found out. I don't have a problem with the mail. I have my own domain. I've got 3 domains. I've got mail systems with those. I keep getting spam emails telling me that from my admin that my password is expiring and would I please sign here and send a thing back. Well, I'm the only one who controls those emails. So I don't know where these people in Japan, China, and India are getting the info from, that they are the administrators of my email. So yeah, you just can't get around it. But I don't see a problem with changing to the group name email at all. Might have a limit on the amount you can attach and send, but I don't see any other issue with it.
Yes, my limit, the limit that we've got is 300 emails every day. So if Linda wanted to send an email out about the donation, and I wanted to send one out about a meeting, if you do your maths, 20 people wouldn't get the email.
But if you send it as a group email, is it not classing it as one email?
No.
It should do. The normal limitation is the amount of attachment. I know that you can add up to about 25 gigs to a mail, and it will get through if the other person can receive it. But they do not like sending big lumps of data by email. I
only know that because one day I did get blocked, and I think it was because had to send out 2 batches on the same day, probably a follow-up to a previous meeting and a notice of the next.
Okay.
But I now know what to do, so that's
Yeah.
no problem.
Yeah.
It might be the volume you're sending them out in, Derek, not just a block on how many emails. It's very rare they're going to say you can only send so many emails. I've never heard it. I've used all sorts.
Yeah.
You probably find it's the volume you're sending them out in.
Sorry, I worded it badly. That's right, Steve.
Yeah, but what you can do is there's plenty of ways of doing it. Things like MailChimp, things like this you do something like a broadcast, and over a period of time, it will send it out to avoid clogging the system up.
Yeah.
So
Right, so I get the impression that nobody really minds about that change of
all right,
email.
so you've decided to change the email address that you are sending from. So it's now from derek@fhzg.co.uk. And the previous email address is one that's been advertised on some websites and places like that. Does that mean that that email address will remain open so that anybody who still sends emails to that address, they will be read by somebody? Or will we lose that
No,
publicity?
I've still got it open, and in fact, that was the only way I could deal with the BT internet problem at the start.
And do you intend to keep that open for the next
So
17
I
years?
sent emails that way. Yes,
Sorry,
it'll stay open, but hopefully
you will keep it open, because
yeah.
you haven't said any of that. So a lot of the things some of the things that you've been saying tonight, we haven't discovered apart from tonight's session. And I'm wondering if some of the issues that we've had, we just need to know what you're doing, because you do a great deal. And as I have been your backup person for the last year or two, I have had access to some of the emails you've sent, and I can see that you have been a very busy person. Though I haven't read all of the emails and don't intend to, but I have seen that you have been extremely busy. And I'm just wondering whether some of the things that you do, you've been hiding them, and therefore we don't really know what you're up to and why you're doing some of the things that you do. And that we don't get the chance to say thank you to you very much.
Yeah, and I think in all fairness, Derek has contacted me and others via email to discuss certain points. And we've been asked sometimes to stay on after a session where we've discussed things that Derek has thought up, and is it a good idea or not a good idea? And those of us that were there at the time constituted the quorum and made the decision whether it was good for the organization or the club or the group there and then, and whether you should go ahead with it. So it's very tricky when you've got 150 people in a group and 50 of them are overseas in different time zones. You're never going to get everybody all at the same time to vote on something or agree to it. And because we're a rather dynamic group at times, I think Derek has done a pretty good job of saying, yes, okay, we can do that. He'll go ahead and organize it. A lot of the things he's done, I wouldn't like to organize. But yes, we have fed in advice to him in advance of what he's done.
Yeah, he's used us as sounding boards quite frequently.
Yeah.
But it does mean that the other 130 people don't know what's going on, and that's the point I'm trying to make. We can't say thank you to Derek for the things he's doing if we don't know about them. We can't understand some of the things he's doing if we don't know about them, and therefore it opens us up to misinterpretation of what's going on.
Well, I agree and disagree in some ways. If you look at the website, on there's always the updated speakers that he has arranged to come and see. Now, we've actually spoken about would it be a good idea to try and get so-and-so as a speaker? And we've said, yes, okay, try. And he's succeeded, and it's come on the list to come up. The other thing that with speakers is I know that the ones that we have had so far haven't actually requested reimbursement. but we're going to get to a stage where we want to get somebody good, give a real talk to us for an hour and a half, and they will charge up to £100 an hour for their time.
Some of them are $150.
Yeah.
Well, Stephen, Stephen's got his hand up.
Yeah, sorry, we sort of moved on for the email address, but I put something in the chat. I've just looked at if someone wanted to contact us, how would they do it? Going on the site, and you're using a mail to link in the contact form. The actual link, even though it says derek@fhz.co.uk, it points to admin at, and it's not advisable to use mail to links in your web forms anymore. It gets scraped.
Yeah.
It's a big no-no, so you'd be best putting just a contact form in or something like that. Just an observation.
I thought I'd used an image. If not, I'll change it because that's what I've done elsewhere.
Yeah, but it actually points to, even though it says Derek at, it's actually pointing to admin at with a mail to link. I posted it in the chat anyway. It's an href.
Right.
Bob, you've got your hand up.
I don't know, Ian, but did I ask you to take over? Yeah, I probably did.
You were asking me to go through the chat.
Yes, I was. Sorry.
Which is still continuing, but I haven't mentioned it all. But people do have their hands up.
Yes, it's Bob next.
It does appear from what how Paul has described things is that we've got an ad hoc committee anyway, with random group of people that are asked to stay on after the event, after the meetings. One thing in favour of having a formal organisation is that, in fact, actually we would get minutes of the committee meetings and we would know what the future plans are.
You would?
I do feel at the moment that it's a little bit autocratic, that we don't know what is being organised. We have no way of putting an input into what we're doing. And when we do, it tends to be rejected out of hand.
I think that last statement requires a clarification.
Fine, I've emailed you on a number of occasions and been told no.
I still want clarification.
Fine, I'll send you the emails I sent.
Right. When we've had when I've had a group discussion, Ian says that you don't get to know what it was about. I've always included it in either an email about a group meeting or a follow-up email.
John has his hand up.
Yeah, two things, just to clarify that last one. I mean, if Derek's asking some, Jeremy and I have spoken many times, and he's asked for my idea, if I thought somebody was a potential speaker or something, if that person is not thought to be a suitable speaker or suitable subject, then it's pointless reporting it. But the other thing is, Trevor's made a couple of points in the comments about the 4 Zoom things that's been missed and passed over.
Yes, I'm concerned that a lot of money's been spent on 4 Zoom licenses, whereas other organisations use a single license and share the login.
Yeah, you only need more than one subscription if you're having more than one consecutive meeting.
That may be correct, except assuming that license is mine, if I fail to turn up, who's going to run the meeting? No one.
If someone else has the login, like a co-host, a regular co-host, they can easily log into that Zoom license. I do that myself with another organisation. It's simple.
Can two of you be using the same login at the same time on different sessions?
No, that's not what
not
Trevor's-
different sessions.
No, what Derek is saying is, what if he doesn't turn up for the meeting? Then, if somebody else, if shall we say, I'd got one of those other 4 licenses, I could then sign in and do it. But you've then still got to tell all the people where they're going to go. By having one person who's, if we took Derek's, if shall we say, Trevor knew Derek's ID and Derek didn't turn up, Trevor could actually start the meeting because he can sign it into the account to start it.
Yes.
We do it within. I've got a Zoom account which I use within the family because I've got a sister in America and a sister-in-law in New Zealand. And we
How
regularly
does
chat
that
on Zoom.
work? How does that work if you've, for example, got 2 workshops going on at the same time?
Then you would need 2 licenses.
Then you need the second license. And I
Or
certainly used one of the Zoom licenses for at least one workshop. And I'm sure others did as well.
yeah, I mean, if you know your workshop's not going to last more than 40 minutes, then you don't need to literally have an account. The only reason you need an account is if your meeting's likely to last more than 40 minutes.
Which is why I had one, because it did.
Now, how accurate they are with the 40 minutes these days, I don't know. They used to be that you could extend it to probably an hour, maybe a bit longer.
No,
I used Google Meet for all my workshops because they ran more than 40 minutes. That's free. No license required and no time limit, and it worked just fine.
Yeah.
I think did you use Zoom though, or did you use whatever the other one's called?
Oh, I said I used Google Meet.
Yeah, that they allow an hour.
Yeah, they allow an hour. It's still time
Longer.
limited.
I didn't have any time limits.
Oh, I did.
I think the people who use Zoom without a license found that they were more or less cut off at 40 minutes.
Yeah, you cut off instantly and you have to restart.
Well, I'm a member of 2 organisations and we share the license because it's just using one license at a time. If you were having more than one meeting at the same time, then you'd need additional licenses. So I think 4 is way overkill, really.
It will be if the person I've got in mind is willing to take over the organisation if and when I've gone, says yes, we would then go down to 3 licenses. And I think anyone who's benefited from the one-to-ones with Alan would be very disappointed if Alan wasn't able to be free for as long as they needed.
Well, couldn't that still be, even if you have the number of licenses, you're down to 2 because it's a shared login. I've had no issues with it on 2 organisations that run quite a lot of
You can't
people
do
on it.
shared login because
Derek, I do use a shared login on
Yeah,
2
but
different
do
things.
you
As
do
long as you're only
seconds?
using it for one meeting at a time, because it won't allow you to do anything else. And a lot of organisations do that. Otherwise, it costs people a fortune. A lot of family history societies do it on a single one. And you can ask most people on this call and they would agree with that.
Can you send me an email of how it's done?
Yes. You just share the email address. You do a forwarding email so that when it asks for a code, it goes to more than one people. Use an email forwarder.
Stephen is correct.
But how does that solve the simultaneous meetings? It doesn't.
Yes, but how many simultaneous meetings are you going to have? That's what we're saying.
Well, if we're asking Alan to do individual one-to-ones, I think Alan needs to be allowed to choose the time when these things happen. And if that happens to coincide when Paul's doing a one-to-one with somebody else or somebody else is doing something, I really think we need the freedom so long as we can still afford them. And presumably we can if the membership remains as it is.
We can.
I should be careful because I know the guild have got one, I think they've got 9 licenses. But when we try to share it with the regional reps, when you're logged in, it asks you for a password.
Mm.
And if you're not the actual owner, which the chairman is at the moment, then you need a password from the chairman. So I'm not
Yep.
sure you can share.
Yeah, that's why you use an email forwarder. So when the share license comes out, it's forwarded to the people who you've shared that with.
Yeah, if you send me details, that'll solve that one. But I still think that even if Paul doesn't have a license, that Alan ought to have one. We do have the funds, and the only reason for the suggested increase in the funds is because, as Paul has said, we are approaching the time when people might need to be paid. In fact, we've got one in the list who was free the first time, but this time he says, "What's the honorarium?" David's got his hand up again.
If you're all so excited about having a Zoom license so that you can do a bunch of things, go get one. I maintain a Zoom license, 100 seat license personally, because I need it on various occasions. And if Paul wanted to borrow it for a day, I'd let Paul borrow it. Hell, he's worth the money. So no big deal. I'll lend you what you need. And I suspect there are others in similar situations. I get an invoice for $15 a month or something. Like, who really cares? It's cheaper than my soccer channel subscription on TV.
Well, the rent I'm paying, I certainly can't afford that.
Ian, is there anything else in the chat before we move on to the next item?
There's a quick comment from Jackson that's relevant to what we were just saying.
Which one's that, please?
If there are workshops, they simply need to be scheduled, not simply wasting funds and trying to fish for increased subscriptions instead of donations.
The workshops were generally run by the people who volunteered.
Yeah, they're run by volunteers in their time.
Yes, and they used the 40 minutes. And if they thought it was going over the 40 minutes, they scheduled a second meeting to immediately follow. So that doesn't apply.
Okay, I think we can move on to...
if Steve's thing works and we can share, then that means that Paul doesn't need a license.
Marvin's also posted a thing in the link about using Zoom management.
Thank you, Marvin. I've looked at that, and what it's really, I think it's saying is that people with multiple licenses can use them to manage things, but it doesn't say that you're sharing licenses with people, you're sharing meetings with people who don't actually have licenses.
I tried to do this before I think it was before we purchased a license for Ian, by giving Ian my login details, password and everything. But what happens is that they sent a text to my mobile to confirm it was me. And that certainly wouldn't work if I wasn't here.
No, but as Stephen has said that he can work, then you've asked him to send you
But
details.
I'll
We'll
look
leave
at
it there. So we'll do
if
that.
If it's
So we talked
impossible,
about,
we'll do it.
okay, we talked about the first item on the agenda, which is the Constitution. We talked a bit about subscription or donation. We've talked a bit about email address, and you said that you're keeping the existing email address open, so any publicity using it, we can still receive inquiries from people and handle them. Then the next bit was to do with agreement or T's and C's.
Yes. It's now irrelevant because what I was going to suggest was that if we went along the membership road, that I did away with the agreement form and it just put terms and conditions on the membership page of the web page which people use to join, so that no one had to sign. And on the form that they fill in, there would be the usual thing about by filling in this form, I agree to the terms and conditions. However, as you've gone back to the donation model, you will still get the agreement asked for you to fill in. But I think I'm proposing, as far as the agreement, that I don't ask all of you to re-sign the revised agreement. I'll send it out just so that you can see what's changed. For instance, one thing that's changed is that it says yeah, forgotten. Wait a minute. Oh no, carry on. Somebody had got their hand up while I find what I'm looking for.
No, nobody's got their hand up that I can see at the moment. We've got a query about speakers, but we need to wait until you've finished looking for whatever it is you are after.
Derek, was it the inclusion of the suggestion from Helen? I agree not to share any group session recording by any means in the public domain.
I'm coming to that in a minute. Right, wait a minute. Perhaps it would make sense if I put the revised agreement in the chat box. The original one said on it, I agree that any recordings downloaded and retained by me are solely for my own personal research. And someone sent me an email pointing out that you may not want them for your research. You might want them for your understanding, for all sorts of different reasons. So that has now been changed to solely for my own use. There's been one or two others, so let me put this in the chat box. I can never find the button. There we go. I wonder while I'm doing this.
Now, can you just do it? We just like to see this because you talked about agreements, and then the next thing we're going to talk about is privacy, and then I want to go back to a couple of things that have been raised in the chat about speakers.
Yeah, just a moment.
I think we'll lose the thread if you don't just get on and use the chat to send through the revised agreement, please.
Well, it's not. I'm laughing at what Trevor's put in the chat. There's no need to pay for speakers. There's lots of knowledgeable people out there who are happy to help for free. Trevor, please let me have a list.
Derek, as I was saying earlier, would you please use
Stop
chat
ducking
to
the
send it,
question.
and we'll come back to the speakers bit, but we lose the thread if you
Yes, I know.
do
I
that.
know you said that, and I'm trying, and if for some reason it's not putting this.
So are you in the chat, and at the bottom there's
Yes,
an emoji for format?
Yes, I know how to do it, but it wasn't doing it. Wait a minute. See if it does it this time. Ah, right. It's there. No, it isn't. It's other people put in extra stuff in there. I don't really know how to do it. I've had 2 goes.
Oh, in that case, perhaps you could email it to us afterwards.
I can certainly do that. That's my intention, because then everybody will get it.
Yeah. Okay. Then the privacy
I could
on
I
the
can
agenda
delete,
item.
but then it's not the same, is it? I wonder if is Robin still here?
Yes, still here.
I wonder if you'd like to say a word, Robin, while I'm sort of trying to do this still, about what we've recently set up.
Yes, certainly. We've produced a forum for the group. It's a forum to supplement what we have already in our communication means. Like a bulletin board, very similar in concept to the other big one, the Family Historian User Group, but it's for the group, where we can post questions for the next meeting, suggest content for meetings, ask questions and get help. Derek will no doubt be sharing the finer details. There's been a bit of a rush to get it put together the last few days, but hopefully you will all make an account and log on and make use of it.
Sorry, did I hear you say we have to make an account?
Yes, there's a registration process because it's a private forum.
Yes, and if any, when you go to it, before you've registered, you will only see the invite really to register. So no outsider can get in. Unlike Facebook, which I know some of you had concerns about. We have decided to still keep the Facebook group going, but maybe there'll be less use of it than once you get into this. What I would say is that because it requires administration to approve people who apply to join. Obviously, with all of you, there could be some slight delay at the beginning. So bear with us, but you will get in.
I thought I'd escaped forums, but I'm happy to help out if need be.
I just share my screen. I'll show you on the browser now.
The other thing that's advantageous about it is that you will be able to send private messages to other members, or to have a conversation with them.
That is the the outside view of the forum that the rest of the internet will see. So it's private to us when you register and make an account, and you log in. You'll be able to see all of the forum entries and announcements and whatever you wish. You can post questions, answer other people's questions, and so on. But all you need to do to start off is click the register button, choose a username, your email address, and your own password. And in a short time, within a day or two probably, Derek will be able to activate your account and you're in.
There's just one thing though, before you can press the submit button at the bottom, there's one of those
capture, a reCAPTCHA thingy,
which you have to put the letters or numbers in that it shows before you can click submit. I will say that I hate captures, but these are very clear, so I don't think anybody will find it a problem. Although I do know that Liz Graydon has been having, she was one of our sample people, and she's not been able to fill hers in properly somehow.
Well, I did click submit anyway, but I haven't had an acceptance email back, so I don't know whether it hasn't been seen or whether it's still failed.
Probably the situation, Liz, because obviously I had my tea and then came to this.
No problems.
So I put the link in the chat.
Yeah, it does work though, because as you can see, I'm the newest member.
Yeah, there was a few members were asked to test the process because we weren't too sure of the options within the admin screens to get it working.
Yeah, and there might still be things to iron out because Julie's just put in the chat that the newest member name is showing before she's joined us.
Well, I only began this process yesterday morning. No, just Sunday morning. I installed it onto the server of the web host, and there's been a great deal of learning on my part. I've never even seen this before, and an awful lot of admin and config to set up.
Yes, and I only made it private this afternoon.
Yeah.
Well done, Robin.
So please go along, make an account, and let's start helping each other in it.
But you probably won't be admitted until tomorrow.
We used on Family Tree Forum, for which I was administrator, we used to have every so often hiccups with capture, and for no apparent reason, it would not let people in. Just don't know why. It was a glitch. It was random. And the newest member name always showed on the front screen. We used the bulletin for ours. Just
that newest name member, that could it be easy to fix, because I know it's written in PHP and we just have to identify the piece of code and comment it out and it won't show there. So that's not an issue.
Maybe an option in the admin controls for that.
There could be an option there already.
But it's only that is someone's chosen username. It doesn't necessarily happen to represent a person. Okay. Your username can be anything you want.
The one thing, Robin, is it doesn't ask you what your real name is.
No.
But it does ask you for your real email.
Yeah.
But I know people whose real email would not indicate what their actual name is.
Ah, but I know that, don't I?
That's assuming they've used the same email address. The other thing to be wary of is that, and I filled it in without realising it, is that you need to set the time zone. It's not overly obvious.
That took as a default if you're here in the UK.
No, it didn't. Mine came up with Algeria or somewhere.
Yeah, but that's still the same belted time zone as what London is. They
Okay.
all say London.
I came up with UTC -4 Anguilla Antigua.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
when I
but
just signed in
UTC
a second ago,
-4 is right for us, David.
right for Canada.
Yep, well, for
Yeah.
Eastern Canada.
So either the program is this far east in Canada, not Newfoundland. But anyways,
It's easy to alter to the correct one.
Yeah, I changed
My
mine
point
to
is,
Dublin.
pick the right one for us.
Yeah,
Now,
you'll see whether it's right because it'll show you the time once you've done it.
Yeah.
So you can always adjust it up or down by going up or down, or well, it's actually across, isn't it? The lines of longitude.
Okay, so just to move us on.
Bill
Thanks for
Neal
telling us about the privacy.
Bill Neal says he's anxious to get back to the purpose of the meeting.
Right, so I was going to say
Let
that
me say that this, what we've just been talking about, is definitely the purpose of the meeting, because it's private, and that's what we are going to be talking about next. But Ian, do you think we should deal with it in the chat now, or
yeah, so
wait?
there's a couple of questions about speakers. Why are we paying for speakers?
Right. I think if you look at the emails I've sent you, for those who keep everyone, you'll find that on many occasions I've asked for suggestions for speakers, especially ones that will be free.
Right.
So
And
that's the
as
answer.
we're a group for family historian software, are we keeping our speakers to people who will be talking about family historian software, or are we going outside that to the realm of what ordinary family history groups do?
Once again, I'd point you to everybody who asks that question to the website to read what our aims are, what we do. Quite a, well, I was going to say quite a number of our members are old. Let's face it, most of us are. Some of us can't get to local family history societies. So we appreciate talks on different subjects. Do you want me, for instance, or if I stuck to what has just been said, you would not have any discussion at all on DNA.
Yep. So I've just looked on the Family Historian Zoom group website, and I can see, therefore, that we have three aims. The first is to help members understand how to use the many features of Family Historian. The second is to help members learn how to research and validate their family history. I don't remember that one coming in. And the third one is to look at ways to assist in the recording of information by using additional programs. That is ancestral sources, spreadsheets, ORA, websites, etc. And I must admit, I didn't realize that we were, as a group, expanding into the areas of researching and validating family history.
Well, that's been there for as long as I can remember. I was hoping nobody would actually do this. I was hoping most people would actually go and have a look.
Well, in reality, Ian, didn't you do a demo on FT Analyzer?
Yes, so that's the third one, looking at ways to assist in the recording of information by using additional programs. Yes.
That fits into validating anyway, so.
Validating. It covers both sins, if you want to call them sins. Now, if somebody asks me the best way to do something as a family historian or as a genealogist, I will tell them and I'll give them my advice on this group. I will not limit it to just what family historian can do. And I think that's fair. And I think that's where that came into it.
No, the question was about the speakers and paying for them. Are we paying for speakers who are talking more generally?
That wasn't Bill's question.
Well, apologies to Bill.
think it was my question.
So you're asking Bill, are we paying for speakers who give talks on genealogy in general?
That's what I
And
said.
that's
Yeah.
not really what we do as a society, or you thought we didn't do as a group.
Well, lots of other people do that. So I thought we were more targeted than that. I mean, most of the stuff doesn't really do much for me. I mean, the family historian and related software does a lot for me, but not just general family history. I mean, we've all been doing that for donkey's years.
Can only repeat again. Send me suggestions with names and email addresses of people who will talk about family historian for free.
That's almost implying that if there aren't any, then you want to have other subjects. Is that what you're saying?
I'm suggesting that it's not easy to find, to be able to fill every session.
With speakers, I agree with that.
Yes. We only really have 2 members who would come into the category of experienced family history users.
Family historian users, I think you meant, yes.
Yes, family historian users. And for those of you who are alert, you will know that following the session on artificial intelligence, Paul said that he would not speak again while anything was being recorded. And if you were alert, you will know that tonight he's spoken. And there's a reason for that. And perhaps, Paul, you could say.
Well, I know a fair amount of you did not see that session given by Ben, let's just call him Ben, and the implications of it. But I realized towards the end of it that he had broken one of our golden rules and taken information that was private to the group and physically published it to 3 or 4 AI engines like OpenAI, ChatGPT, and I can't remember the others that he had there, which meant that every single thing that we have said and the people who said it can be identified by those artificial intelligence people if they were to go and look for it. And that was major. At the time, I was rather shocked, and I said, I will not participate in any further recordings, because if they can do that and they can say screen scrape or understand everything that has been said here tonight and identify who said what, that's a very dangerous situation with artificial intelligence. However, in looking back on it, it was probably a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, but I think it was the right one, because I think it's got most of us now thinking about security. How do we do this? How do we do that? And so on and so forth. When I've done some further research onto looking at these artificial intelligence engines, they are everywhere. Everything you do on Amazon, Facebook, Google, anywhere you look, behind the scenes, every browser you've got has an AI engine there scraping what you're doing and storing it somewhere. And that's how they're getting your information and sending you targeted marketing references. So in retrospect, looking at that happening the whole time to every single one of us, and we can't do a damn thing about it. Our one friend in the States who took all, I don't know how many, 3 years worth of audio sessions and sent them up to somebody else, that is in reality an absolute little drop in the ocean. But somebody might pick up on that drop and put 2 and 2 together And then why are we holding private meetings? They just won't exist anymore. So I relented. I asked for this to be recorded. And the reason I asked for it to be recorded is so that we can go through it again slowly, probably Derek, myself, and a few others who may be interested, and actually pick up what was said during this meeting to actually tidy up, if you'd like, minutes of the meeting or additions to the Constitution or description of whether we wanted to go donation or whatever. It's been said in this meeting and it's being recorded. Now, there are ways and means of getting that transcribed, and the person that gave us that AI demonstration actually told me what the software was that could do it, that could actually go through and produce a transcription of everything that's been said tonight. I don't really want to do that, and I don't think we should, but it's been recorded. I was also, over the last few days, had a few emails and requests not to drop out from the system, because we've only had, what, 48, 49 people here out of the 160 attending tonight. So there's at least 100 who are relying on the recordings to actually learn what we talk about. So I have relented, and I will join in meetings, but I think we should be very careful on what we say and how we say it, because to me, the whole of this group has been on trust. We trust that the next person is not going to splurge what I've said to the latest newspaper and so on. It's been trust that we do this properly. And I feel quite strong with that. So there we have it. That's me. And I'm glad about the bulletin board, because I think that's going to help. A lot of things can be said privately between people or in the group, or discussions on how to fix something in Family Historian or Aura or Ancestral Sources. It won't just be one person's input into a solution. It could be 2 or 3 people having a general discussion on how to solve that person's problem. And I think that's going to be good. But that's why one of the reasons it's going to be behind a privacy wall, because it's only really for the members of this group. And I hope that nobody actually abuses that privilege. Thank you.
Yes, in fact, I took that recording down, as you know. And then I received an email from someone who's not here tonight, so I'm not going to mention any names, suggesting that Robbins Index could be improved if a link was put in to each to take you to the actual recording on OneDrive. I replied to the effect that the whole discussion tonight, well, I've taught the whole discussion, was going to be about privacy and so on. And what he was suggesting would, although he had offered to do it, would in fact reduce our privacy, because everyone who looked at the website and went to that page would know that our recordings are stored on the OneDrive.
There's a couple of bits in the chat, apart from lots of people saying thank you to Paul. But before that, there was a question about a comment you made earlier, Derek, that we have only 2 experienced FH users in the group. Did you mean to say that?
Well, we might have others, but other people are not offering.
Oh, you mean people who are we may have more than 2 experienced users in the group, but only 2 are offering their services.
Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification.
No. Is it gone?
Anyone else want to make any comment about privacy?
Does the forum have any storage facilities? Could we put all these things into the forum, get everything into one place?
You can copy images and text files of certain types and zip files up into the forum as a sample in that group. It does not have a database lying in the background with everything that goes in there. So if we started a what do you call it, a post or a thread on how do I do something in Family Historian, and I wanted to know, and I could show an image of my screen of what I was doing, it would be on that post only. It doesn't go anywhere else. If I put a copy of my code there, if it was, say, Aura, people could copy that down and have a look at it, but it is not stored anywhere. Admins and users can go and delete their own posts after a certain time. So it's not permanent. They're there for discussions in that time, and it's not a historical archive.
Is that because of the settings you've chosen to use?
I think it's also a limitation on
Well, there's a limitation on server space, obviously.
server space. Yeah.
That was a problem that 3 months after Family Tree Forum started up, people were collecting up lots of links and information, and we actually, alongside it, set up a wiki using the wiki coding, which is quite straightforward, to be able to accommodate things like that. And I mean, I don't know PB Bulletin, but V Bulletin, in the later versions, you can upload PDFs.
Yeah, you can.
As well as images. So that would partially get round it.
Yeah.
When I said, is there anything else, I hadn't realised that we were at 9 o'clock. But is there anything that anyone wants to say really before we finish?
I'm just thinking about the recording, the infamous recording about the AI. Do you intend to keep that private, or do you make it, or will you make it available to the group? Because while I fully take on board the privacy concerns, and I agree, and I'm very glad that Paul has reconsidered his position on that, the summary provided, I thought, seemed very useful and would be useful to the group as a type of index. Don't know what anyone else thinks about that.
I went through some of those transcriptions and what was generated from our meetings and had a look at them afterwards. And some of them were very good English, but they were inaccurate. So I would not take them as gospel, as this is what was said. It was a summary, and quite often, or in a few places, words were completely wrong that were never spoken. And where it identified speakers, it actually got the speaker wrong. So I personally would not trust what was in any of those as this is what happened in that meeting. It was a nice experiment. I wish he had done it on some other data source rather than our meetings, and it would have been more enjoyable. But it got spoiled. I don't think taking those summaries that he had and with the links as to what was said in some parts of the videos, I don't think they'd be any more valuable than what Robin is doing and saying at this point at 10 minutes and 22 seconds in this video, Fred talks about pajamas. You know, it's, you can go to
the
the
index as it stands is very valuable and very useful and very much appreciated.
Yeah,
very much so. I agree with that, and thank you to Robin for all that work.
Thank you for those nice
Not
comments.
using this software, if it were not for this group, I'd have thrown up my hands in frustration months and months ago.
Could I just say, I've heard this question raised once or twice before about having live links in the video index. I did experiment a little and looked into it, but I couldn't get any links into Derek's archive anyway.
Yeah.
It's not possible to link into individual files and generate a clickable link from the files within the OneDrive. Besides which, we would be exposing that to everybody outside of the group. We'd be allowing people to see live links and defeating our own sort of privacy here.
I see Julia's got a hand up. I'm going to allow her to speak, and then we really must finish.
Yeah, it was just a comment really about the video that was taken down, was that surely the issue was more about copyright, that copyright was potentially an issue there, as well as the fact that people's privacy, we weren't asked about whether or not we were happy to be part of that transcription.
Fully agree with that.
Yeah, because they've exposed people that took part in those videos.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to see that put back online.
Right.
Right. Well, thank you for everyone for coming. Paul mentioned a number of people. There was actually at one point 53 people here, which
Sorry, how many?
53, I think.
53.
I will know
I didn't see that number, but 47 is the biggest number we've had at any previous meeting.
I saw 53. It went up to 53.
Yeah, I shall know who they were later on, and also how long they stayed, which answers a question that Paul sent me an email about.
Good.
Anyway, thanks everyone for coming, and thanks again for your comments. But I think we will close the meeting. Actually, I'll stop recording.